well, find something to shoot photos of. So we've got several of these chain / rope bottle holders that are kind of neat. So I figure, let's see if we can do a photo shoot with these things. So there's really no good background, and I was thinking, what could we do? So heading outside, I realized I have 7 chain bottle holders, and I'm gonna shoot just the chains. And I also have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 barrels I can use. So I'm thinking if I use a long lens, like shoot it at 150 millimeters or something with a zoom lens, I can probably get a bunch of background compression, real good depth of field. Man, I'm gonna have to be really low to get that parking lot out of there. Maybe I'll have to set the barrels up way over there. And I can have that background all blurred out, and I can set up a barrel, boom, 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 boom. Have them going all the way back, and have one of those bottle holders on every barrel. Who knows? We'll see how it turns out.
Six hours later.
So instead of using 7 barrels, I figure 5 will be plenty. And a couple things I'm gonna keep into consideration. One, I set it up here because that background, especially when we get our final photo, it's gonna be all blurred out, but I obviously didn't want color. I didn't want gaps in the trees, you know, with light showing through. So I just want a nice green, and it'll be a blurry background. A couple things I'm going to consider is the grain on these barrels. I don't know how much of this is gonna be in the actual shot, how low I'm gonna get, but I'm gonna wanna make sure all these grains are going the proper direction. The barrels, as you can see, some are different colors, so that's no big deal. It's gonna give a little character to the photo. But also different heights. You can see those barrels in the back and that one in the middle are a little taller. So I've got these couple up here. Anyway, I will just continue playing around and arranging, and we'll see if we can get a good photo. Okay, so I've probably been out here for almost an hour now, if not a little over an hour, just tweaking things, adjusting little minute characteristics. I noticed when I started taking pictures that these rivets looked pretty cool in the finished image, but I didn't have all the barrels with the rivets facing out. I kind of adjusted some of the heights of some of the barrels because I wanted the wines to be kind of evenly spaced. And you can see some are at a little bit different angles with the chains and all that. Anyway, there was a lot of little adjustments to be made. This was a black label, but it kind of blended in with the background too much. So what a lot of people don't realize if you're doing little product shots or something is how long and how tedious it can be just making tiny little minute changes. Like, it would have been easy just to take my first snapshot and be like, oh cool, it's good. But then you get to the computer and you're like, oh man, it would have been better if this were changed, or if this were different, or I didn't notice this. Something as small as those rivets on the barrels. You know, if I would have noticed this one didn't have the rivets showing, but this one did and the other one did, and I think it looks cool, and then it's like, well crap, I missed out on it. So after about an hour of playing with our little setup here, we're ready to get to the computer and see what kind of edits we want to do. Okay, so the first thing I did when I opened it up is that I noticed there's a lot of these little blemishes and imperfections, which are no big deal, but I made a clone layer right here, and you can see how those just disappear. I just kind of cloned those out, just little tiny pieces of crud that were dirty on the barrel. Didn't really want those there. I did adjust the brightness of the entire image, and then this layer actually only adjusted these bushes in the back because they were a little distracting, so I wanted to bring that bright green down a bit. So I made a brightness layer, brought the brightness down, and basically just erased or masked out everything else around it. I did a brightness adjustment again on everything except the bottles. So I brought the whole image down in brightness and then just masked out the bottles, so they didn't actually get darker. It's just basically the background. And then I did another brightness contrast layer, and this one was, I believe, yeah, just contrast. So I didn't mess with the brightness there, but you can see how it just makes the blacks a little more vivid and the highlights a little more vivid as well, so it adds a little more depth to the photo. And then one thing I like to do with some photos, obviously our attention is made to be in the center, so I kind of made my own little vignette just by painting this this black layer here. I'll show you what it looks like normal. So I just used a big paintbrush and painted a black all around it, turned the layer into overlay, so it kind of lets some of those highlights shine through, and brought the whole layer's opacity down to about 65. So it's not too over the top. And then I also wanted to warm it up a little bit because it feels like it's kind of muted. So I added this layer, and you can see that just adds a lot of warmth to it. And I erased out the, whoops, wrong layer to draw on it, the metal rings, because they're kind of the only cold tone in the image, and I like that blue that they have in it. So you can see that this only warms up the wood and the bottles a little bit, but it leaves the blue metal rings completely alone. That was by masking all that out. I did another brightness adjustment and a little bit of contrast as well to the entire thing, just because it was still looking a little drab, so I needed to boost it up, give it a little more life. And then this curves adjustment is where I kind of brought the blacks up. So you can see here, the blacks are a lot more black. Well, I brought that up so they're not quite so black. Whoops, wrong one there, curves adjustment. And you can see that here. It's like it was down here, you bump it up, and you can bump it way up. See, now you got no blacks at all. But get that back there. White balance adjustment. I just warmed the image up a little bit. Didn't have to, it's just personal preference. I like warm tones, I think. So that's the whole finished image. A bunch of little adjustment layers here. Every layer is just a small adjustment, really. I mean, it looks fine without that layer, but putting that on there. Oh, it's 100%, that's why it's so crazy. This should be, what the heck? Well, my free version of the screencaster that I was using to record the screen ran out of my time limit. So luckily I was right at the end. I just showed you kind of how I got set up and what layers I used to edit, and yeah, my kind of process for messing around with photos. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope you enjoyed this final image. Catch you on the next video.